I want to share a story with you about the law of proximity and an introverted child who had close to no social skills, and over the course of being surrounded with the right people and then eventually finding himself surrounded with the wrong people, and then in the end finding himself surrounded by better people, was able to use and leverage this law of proximity to gain the types of skills that would then allow him to not only make the network, but then from there build the business, build the success that allowed him to then live the life and become the person that he didn't even realize that he wanted to become. But it starts with that decision of wanting to become a better person, wanting to be surrounded with the types of people that will foster that type of an identity, that type of growth, that kind of opportunity for someone to flourish. Because the law of proximity is simply you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. There's another way that you can understand this. Show me who your friends are and I will show you who you are. Is it really surprising that degenerates tend to hang out with degenerates and that successful people tend to hang out with successful people? And that if one hangs out with another for long enough, one of them starts to change into the other through this process that we have all come to know as assimilation. The same thing with new groups of people going into a certain culture or society over the course of time assimilate, and the cultures start to mold. This is where we have a level of appropriation as cultures mix and they start to familiarize and enjoy the best qualities of one another through this aspect of collaboration that again all starts from the law of proximity, because that which is near itself will continue to foster that self. Good continues to be good and bad will continue to be bad, right? A force in motion continues to stay in motion. As we understand physics, the law of proximity pervades everything that we know. And so the fastest way that you can change your life is by changing your surroundings. Welcome to today's Gen Ed class. The law of proximity has a wonderful opportunity to dramatically change someone's life. The trouble is that it can be very uncomfortable to change surroundings. And the funny part is that discomfort does not necessarily mean pain and suffering. It can simply mean being in a new surrounding, things that are uncertain, that are brand new. And especially if you are not willing or going to go through and lean into that uncertainty, lean into that fear, that discomfort from a new surrounding, a new environment, things aren't going to change. And this is the same precipice that I found myself in as an introverted child, where growing up, I was privileged to be thrown onto a computer at the age of 2, and then from there, playing World of Warcraft at the age of 5, and being very much a gamer, and along with that, a bookworm. So much so that I would read books, probably more books than in fact I spoke to people. And if you're not really understanding my exaggeration, it's not an exaggeration. I read the dictionary as a child. And my point in this being is that I didn't do a good job of building the social side of things. I started to build friends online versus building friends in person. It doesn't tend to do well when you're a child, especially in elementary, middle, and of course high school. But so I understood that, thankfully, before going into high school. And so up until the end of middle school, 8th grade, for those in the States, it was very much a really awkward time. I mean, not to let alone say puberty, but from there, growing the height and getting used to interacting more, and especially because of puberty, there's kind of a new angle that starts to introduce itself, as obviously we all understand, and then high school itself. And I'm not going to fault and say that my entire aspiration going into high school was for popularity. I was a high school kid. I Don't really know what a lot of other people tend to go for. Don't get me wrong. I did a good job of getting my grades and having good grades and doing a good job of being there for my family and being involved with my sports. But similarly, that was just part of being social, right? But the thing is that I wasn't good at socializing. So how the heck do I get good at this? The thing is that in middle school, I could have done a better job to have cultivated friendships. But so at least in my head, I felt like I had a small pool. So then going into high school, I knew the most important thing for me was if I really wanted to change my social standing in some way and have a better opportunity to get to this popularity kind of space, then I need to have new friends. I need to go make new ones. And so there was, funny enough, someone that I didn't hang out with much in middle school ended up being a close friend of mine. And he did a wonderful job of staying close with more women. I mean, granted, I ended up going to an all-guy school. And from there, it obviously is just one of those things. So he was great with socializing and having a lot of friends, guys and girls. So I hung out with him. And then from there, I got introduced to another friend he was really good with being even just more, not just suave, but just cool in a certain way. And then another friend, until all of my friends had this quality about them, the charisma, the funness, the comedic timing, and being able to read. And they helped me understand social cues, right? All of these different little aspects. And I was very much willing to learn. And from there, the law of proximity started to, without me even fully realizing it, change my life. Because then now as high school progresses, I am feeling far more confident about myself. While freshman year, anytime, and it was a struggle, that I went out on the weekends. I made sure I went out every Friday and Saturday, and I would go out to a social event and party in some way. I had butterflies every single time, terrified, nervous, oh my goodness, clammy hands. But eventually, over the course of time with practice and repetition, you become used to it. So the law of proximity, these people were starting to show me this. But then from there, I continue to make friends, and I continue to make friends, and I continue to seek this popularity. So I overcorrect. And from there, one of the things that does happen to be cool are the things that you shouldn't technically be doing. And so, of course, I ended up doing, and from there, it ended up getting me into very hot water. If you go back to the other episode of the story that saved my life with the farmer and his horse, it came into me being surrounded by other types of people that ended up getting into me having habits that led to my expulsion and withdrawal from my high school and transference. And it just, right in that moment, my father had always told me growing up that show me who your friends are and I will show you who you are. Another one of his favorite ones was, you are a master to what you think and a slave to what you say. And so from there, I started to really think about the people that I was around and especially what I said, because it started to really glare. And from there, I started to take advantage of basically this kind of vacation I got, because it gave me the perfect opportunity that I weirdly was looking for. If you reference the other video, the other episode, going over optimizing your brain and your reticular activating system, what if I told you that I was weirdly looking for an excuse to be able to isolate and kind of recreate myself? Because I did kind of feel a wall coming up. I had this block in my mind where I couldn't see a certain reality that seemed expected for me. And I ended up, of course, getting expelled, as I just mentioned a moment ago. So from there, this community, these friends that I was starting to cultivate a relationship with, was starting to lead me down dark paths. So ties cut. From there, college begins, and I moved to Tallahassee, just barely convincing my parents to let me go, because they understood and I understood that staying at home, being in that surrounding, was not going to be good for them nor for me. And so we ended up deciding and agreeing that I would go to FSU, and I paid for what I was there for. And I paid for my tuition. I had to make up for that, which is fine. And so when I got to FSU, I did everything in my power to surround myself with the absolute best people I possibly could. I ended up getting lucky in one way to have a person that I ended up working very closely with, who he resembled a lot of the qualities that I wanted to pick up. He was entrepreneuring and business minded and had at least more time in a professional manner that I wanted to gain skills in, and it happened to be in a job that I was picking up. So from there, building this network, being surrounded by these groups of people. Some people, for example, would like to talk down on the idea of Greek life. I ended up going into 2 fraternities, one social, one business, because of the fact that because of the fact that I was surrounded by social people that were connected to other types of people, and business-minded, hopefully professionals that were connected to other people. And the law of proximity, as we understand, states that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So what happens if everyone that you're spending time with is a fucking badass? How much of a badass do you become? And that's the point of the law of proximity, is to take advantage so that you can continue to hone in on the skills that for others is supernatural, but for you, you may need to practice. But when you are next to someone that is a natural, then you start to embody the mannerisms and the beliefs and thought patterns of the natural based on the law of proximity, because we assimilate to one another. We mirror and model one another subconsciously. So if you want to become successful really fast, whether this be financially or even just a social media tip for you, you want to grow on social media faster, collaborate. Collaborate and take advantage of the law of proximity. Because when you are surrounded by other great people, you become great. When you are surrounded by lower quality people, guess what you become? I can tell you from personal experience. So take advantage of this information. Look at the people, the 5 people you spend the most time with, and have a real conversation, because it doesn't have to be an emotional thing. It can just be a very real thing. Hey, I want to go in this direction, and I need these types of people around me to get there. Will you be one of those people? If not, hey, there needs to be certain boundaries. And there's nothing wrong with that, because ultimately it's your life, isn't it? So protect your territory, protect those in your proximity so that you can become exactly who you are meant to become. Surround yourself with those that help you become that. If you found value in today's episode, make sure to share this onto any of your and all of your platforms so that others can go ahead and learn about us, and with that get value the same way that you are. Put any and all of your takeaways down into the comments below. From there, you can, of course, follow and engage with us on our socials in the description below. Make sure to hit the subscription button, the bell for future notifications of other episodes as they get dropped and released, so that you can always be up to date. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you in your next Gen Ed class.